Welcome to the Brand Success Podcast, where you'll hear amazing stories from people like you who overcame their fears, frustrations, and obstacles on their way to brand success. Join us to be inspired by how they persevered, pivoted, and powered on to success. Not easy, but they did it, and so can you.
Hello, my friends. Welcome to Brand Success. Have you ever wondered why everyone else seems to be able to grow a brand successfully, and you just seem to struggle and struggle and struggle? Well, today you're going to get some tips that are going to help you out. In Brand Success, in our podcast and YouTube video series, we talk to the experts who know how to make successful brands. And we're very fortunate today because we have with us Cornelia Ward. Cornelia is amazing because she has found a company. The title of her company and her brand is Get Clients from Meetup. And she has found a way to teach people how to monetize their Meetup groups. So Cornelia, I know you have lots of tips for us, so have at it.
Great. So fun to see everybody. And I'm assuming if you are listening that you may be an entrepreneur who loves to teach. And so I have some really fun information to share with you today. But first of all, I'll tell you a little bit about me. So I work with entrepreneurs who love to teach to bring in a steady flow of new clients with Meetup. So if you're somebody who does workshops or talks, maybe you've looked at Meetup, maybe you haven't, or maybe you do Meetups now. I think that Meetup is just such a great way, especially like if you don't, even if you're getting started, like if you don't have a website, you don't have a mailing list, you don't have a social media following, you don't need any of those things because Meetup actually does all three of those things for you. It's really, really fun. So the background on me is I started my business about 10 years ago, and I have a really strong business and financial background. But here's the thing, I really struggled to bring in a steady flow of clients in the beginning, which was very frustrating. And it was in the middle of the financial crisis. And if any of you remember what it was like if you were in business in the middle of the financial crisis, well, I was starting my business then. And I was taking lots of programs about how to get clients as a new life coach. But none of these systems were working because what happened, and of course, this was in the middle of the crisis, we didn't know kind of this was happening. But what was happening during the financial crisis is that businesses were no longer doing the business the way that they were accustomed to doing. Like the systems to get clients, for instance, in the life coaching arena, those systems were no longer working. So I was trying to get clients based on what I was being taught, like I'm a pretty good student and just tell me what to do and I'll go do it. And so these systems that I was learning just were not working. So here we were in the middle of the financial crisis. I had just started my business. And what I found is that, I love to teach. And, through these trials and tribulations of figuring out how to get clients, I figured out a system to bring in a steady flow of clients using Meetup. And here's the thing is when I first started my business, and this is one of the things that wasn't working for me, and maybe this is you as well, is I was too general when I told people about what I did. I would tell people, well, I help people with life transitions and money. And people, because I had a business background, I had a financial background, and I thought that was pretty specific, but people really had no clue what that meant. It was just too general. Like it didn't bring up a picture in their mind. And so I didn't get referrals from people because they didn't know who to refer to me. And I didn't have very many clients. And so what I learned, and this is great if any of you kind of feel like you're in this place, because this is so key, whether you teach or you don't teach, you use Meetup or you don't use Meetup, just kind of the strong foundation for building your business is to be more specific about the problem you're helping people with. And that was one of my major mistakes. So eventually, through all these programs and learning and coaching that I got, I came up with a tagline that was when people asked me what I did, I would say, I help people love Mondays. And so that was really clear, right? Like everybody either loved Mondays or they didn't love Mondays. Like maybe their husband or their spouse was coming home every night and complaining about their job. So that was a great referral for me because I was really specific and it was very, there's a picture in people's mind. So I've since started working with entrepreneurs who love to teach to bring in a steady flow of clients with Meetup. And it's basically the same theme. These business owners love what they do. They love Monday. So that was kind of that common passion connection from my previous business work. And they want to help as many people as they can. And that's one of the first things to know when you create your own meetups or your talks in general to get clients is to know the specific problem you're helping people with. Because unless you know that, your people aren't going to show up. Unless your talks have a specific name so that people are like, oh, okay, you're doing a talk on branding, people who are not clear about how to get the message out about their business, right? That would be an example. So let me tell you how this worked for me. And after it took years of me just kind of trying to figure out how to get clients. And so here's what happened. Okay, I was finally rewarded. So my first meetup was called How to Find Your Life Purpose So You Can Create a Career You Love. 15 people came. I was pretty happy about that. 5 of them were already clients. And out of the 10 people left, I always forget, but it was either 8 or 9 became clients within 3 to 4 days of my talk. And I made, from that 1 2-hour talk, I made $9,000 within just a few days. So I was just like, okay, like we're cooking here. It looks like this is going to work. So the magic of Meetup and the magic of having a talk that's aligned with a specific problem you help people with is really, really critical, right? Those two things are connected. Meetup works really well. Your talks generally will work really well. My argument is that even Meetup, they'll really leverage getting the word out for people as well. But those have to be aligned in order for your people to show up.
Right.
And again, I mentioned you don't need a website, you don't need a mailing list, you don't need a social media following, which people who are struggling with that, or they're just getting started and feel like they've got to go get a website, or they're not tech savvy, hopefully that saves a lot of you some time. So Meetup is basically all 3 of those things. They are the website, okay? They've got that presence online. They are the mailing list. They mail people interested in your topic to your people when you announce your talk. And they're also the social media platform, right? There's that aspect of it as well. It only costs like $20 to $30 per month to get great results. And so here's the thing. So I just told you those great results I got. Well, I live in Vermont, here in the US, in the Northeast, in New England. And there's a silly saying in Vermont that there are more cows than people. And so if you think about that and you think about the numbers I just gave you, 15 people showed up, $9,000 in just a few days of my talk, you hopefully can see that if it can work here in Vermont, it really can work anywhere. And meetups are really located all over the world. So there's really no limit there. And then what I'd say, Kay, about the 3 most important things to building a brand and a successful business from my perspective are, first of all, to provide a service or product that really aligns with the work you're meant to do. So, my example, in the beginning, I started my business. I told people I helped people with life transitions and money. That was too general, but it didn't really, I don't know. I think it was kind of where I thought I should start given my experience, but I wasn't necessarily really excited about that. But then when I was able to teach people, that really was, I was more excited about that. And that was aligned with more the work I was meant to do and helping people love Monday mornings. So, so that often a business that makes our hearts sing is based on a life experience that we had,
right?
Particularly challenging. And that might be your life purpose. That might be the business you want to start. And the thing is that, we often in this situation, we're able to overcome and have a passion for helping others with this issue because we see other people around us suffering. Like for me, that's what I'm doing. Like, I don't like to see entrepreneurs suffer the way I did. And so I love working with entrepreneurs who love to teach, and I just show them for $20 to $30 a month to get their Meetup membership or their account set up.
Mm-hmm.
I can show them how to get really a steady flow of clients in their business. So that's what I love to do, and that's my purpose. So those of you who are watching, your purpose may very well be something that you've really struggled with. And here's the great thing about that is that I call that having a PhD in life experience.
Right.
So you don't, often people they'll stay in a job because they think they've got to go back to school or do some program or whatever it is. And we all need coaching as businesses, right? We all need that. But what I'm trying to say is that you may, if that's you and you've gone through, I don't know, a chronic disease, even a condition that was considered fatal maybe, a relationship, a money issue, those kinds of things, a business issue, a career issue. Those are things that you could turn around and help other people with. And you've already got the experience. You already know what steps you took to get people through to the other side and much more quickly than it took you. So that may be your life purpose as well. That's a really fun way of figuring out. So this is really what I've done with my business. And then the second recommendation I make is, and I just mentioned this a minute ago, right, is to start with a specific problem to help people with in your business, whether that's a product or a service. And if you think of any of the, businesses that we all know out there that we might use, like Amazon comes to mind. I mean, they have lots of products, but their whole thing is, a service where they're getting people their products, right, really quickly so that they can save time, right? So that would be an example of a really specific problem. And that, whether you want to teach or not, whether you want to use Meetup or not, that at least from my point of view, is really critical. And then the last one, I'm not sure so many people talk about this, but another thing I'm really passionate about is showing entrepreneurs how important it is to practice really good self-care. And I think of self-care as a marketing strategy. So when you're out there getting exercise, or I just, before we hopped on today, I was just down on Lake Champlain. I live right near a huge lake here in Vermont, and walking with my dog and, walking in the sunshine and just taking in, receiving, right? Because I've been working all morning. And it was, okay. So that's an act of self-care. And one way that entrepreneurs can get around the whole thing in their head around, I don't have time for that. I don't have time to go for a walk. I don't have time to exercise. So if you think about self-care as a marketing strategy, you're actually working on your business. And the funny thing is, when I'm walking, by the lake, or you're outside or exercising, that's often when you get those great business ideas, right? So that would be an argument, right? So from a very practical point of view, really good self-care, getting exercise, eating well, drinking lots of pure water, all those things that we know how to do, getting enough sleep, right? It actually increases your energy level so that you have the bandwidth to basically juggle whatever you're juggling during the day with your business. So that's the third thing. And I can't overstate that. Let's say, people who are watching, maybe they're getting their business started. If you start there, you won't get burned out if you practice consistent daily self-care of some kind. Okay. And then what I was going to say, just to wrap up, is in the beginning, I didn't have a specific problem. So it took me a while to figure out what I was supposed to help other business owners with so they don't have to struggle like I did, which turned out to be my life purpose. And here's the thing, is that people all over the world are really craving community and loving connecting with people one-to-one in person. So from my point of view, where I help people with Meetup and getting clients from Meetup, I feel like that has a really bright future because, people put their smartphones away, right? And they're actually connecting with each other in person. And that's where you can be the conduit as the person who's leading the workshop or talk. You can be the conduit for the transformation that you're hoping people are going to get when they hear your message, like the 5 steps to create a career you love, or to get relief from chronic pain. And that kind of personal transformation that people are looking for, and it can happen in a short amount of time. It can definitely happen within a 2-hour workshop.
Mm-hmm.
That kind of transformation doesn't typically happen when somebody is listening to a webinar, and there's nothing wrong with that, right?
Right.
I've listened to lots of webinars and gotten a lot out of them, but it's just different. It's a different kind of transformation. And here is the really fun thing, is that there's this, because I have a background in community economic development, which is all about strong communities, the business, the nonprofit, the public sector. And then it's also about what's called the social capital, which is kind of this intangible asset that all communities have. So it's wherever you see people gather and connect and have relationships in person. And so that in-person connection, whether it's in your meetup or some other kind of talk you're doing, or a business meeting or whatever it is, when people get to connect in person, or maybe it's just Saturday morning going to the dump and dropping off something, right? Those connections that we make with people probably seem like they're not that big a deal, but it actually supports our communities and, of course, our relationships, but also just on a larger level, our communities around their vitality and their health.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what social capital is. And that's a really fun thing that I think that meetups offer to people.
Right.
Yeah.
So you've kind of come full circle.
Yes, I have.
In a wonderful, beautiful way.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, it's really fun. Yeah, and that's what your purpose is, right? The work that you really want to do.
Yeah. I think one of the things that people who are watching today or listening today might want some insight into would be when you go to set up your meetup group, that name, that title of the meetup group is really, really important. Can you speak to that a little more?
Yeah, so the way meetup groups work, or meetup works, is that there's kind of this hierarchy. It's very simple, but you have your meetup group, and then underneath your group, so people, Meetup sends out an email saying, hey, there's this new group all about spirituality, meditation, and health, right? Let's say that's your thing. And again, that's general, right? But that's just generally what they do. And then people come and join your group. And when they become members of your group, that's where they see your workshop that you're having, like next week on 5 steps to overcoming chronic health naturally, something like that, right?
Right.
And so the group name is important, right?
Mm-hmm.
It should be related for sure to the problem you help solve in your business, help people solve. An easy way to come up with group names is to think about, like, who are 5 clients that you have, or 5, if you're new, 5 people that you've helped, or 5 people that you want to help. How would you describe them?
Mm-hmm.
If you're a business coach, your groups might be called spiritual entrepreneurs, life purpose seekers, heart-centered entrepreneurs, thriving healers, right? Mm-hmm. They can describe different aspects of the people that you work with. And then the talk itself, kind of that really kind of typical framework or outline for talks around how to do X so that you can Y is a great framework. So it's how to, like, overcome the problem, right? Mm-hmm. So that you can ... right? So that's why mine was how to find your life purpose so you can create a career you love. And that's so specific. I mean, that had nothing to do with life transitions or money or anything, right? It was totally tied into me helping people love Mondays. And that's how does that answer that question?
Yeah, I think it does. I think also what happens for people is they're afraid to micro niche because they're afraid they'll lose people.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And when in fact just the opposite happens, right? Because
that's something people do worry about. But, and is what somebody's doing now, like if somebody's watching, okay, and they are afraid to kind of niche things down, and they've been trying to get clients for a long time. Maybe it's time to try something different, right? And think about all those businesses that right? Like, who do you frequent? Like, what's the name of the grocery store or the holistic place that you go to? What's their service or product, right? Mm-hmm. So every business that we give money to has that specific problem they're solving for people.
Right. And I also think of it in terms of if I were looking for that very specific buyer and could deliver that solution to that buyer is going to have other problems too.
Oh yeah, right? It's just, yeah. And here's the thing. So here's how my business went. Okay. I started with people who are confused about their life purpose. Mm-hmm. That's where we started. And, we didn't just work on life purpose. Like we worked on self-care. We worked on, I don't know, any number of different things. Right. Mm-hmm. But all around, all connected to what I knew they needed to move forward with their life purpose. And then those people graduated from those programs and they wanted to start businesses and they wanted to know how I started my business. So you can start with one thing and go. So that's a great example of someone starts out with life purpose, but they grow into, okay, now I know my life purpose. I'm supposed to be a business owner. Okay. And then we just continue on the journey with a different program.
Right. And I also think when I think about that specific buyer, like you were talking about in your sentence, the X, fill in the X and the Y, that specific buyer wants to know, what exactly am I going to get?
Yeah.
And so many people use these, what I call squishy terms. And people don't buy squishy stuff. They buy, this is something that will solve my problem. And then once you develop that relationship, which is what you've done with your people, then you move them into a new area and into a new solution. So I think when you talk about niches, I think for the people who get a little bit of a headache from that, it's really important to understand that that's often the first step in a journey with someone.
And it has to be, and I know you know this too, but just for people who are watching, it also has to be the problem people know they have.
Right. Mm-hmm.
So, and this is general anyway, but people often I'll ask them what they do, and they'll say, well, I help people with low self-esteem. And you may hear somebody talking and know that they have that tangible issue they have in their life right now because they've got low self-esteem, but they don't know that.
Right.
They're not in the middle of the night going, oh my gosh, I've got low self-esteem. Right. How am I going to overcome this problem? They're in the middle of the night going, I can't pay my bills. My partner's about to leave me. My kids are a wreck, whatever it is. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. They don't know it's a, so that's what I actually I was thinking of when you said it's the beginning of the journey, right? Because they don't know they need the self-esteem, but you as a business owner are telling them tangibly, like you said, what they're going to walk away with.
Right.
And they don't need to know the how. They just want to know the results are what they're looking for. And then once they enter your world, then you just sit them down and say, okay, so here's the process. We need to look at your self-esteem or however.
Right. Exactly. Well, I think you have some resources for our people. Is that right?
Yes, there is a Get Clients for Meetup challenge. Mm-hmm. And I know this podcast and YouTube channel is going to go on forever. So I think you have the URL to share with people. Mm-hmm. And I do a Get Clients for Meetup free 5-day challenge 4 times a year.
Okay. Good.
So, as you and I are talking, it's fall of 2019 almost, right? Mm-hmm. So I'm doing one in the fall, but if you hear this in November and you're like, oh, I missed it. Well, actually, there's another one coming in January.
Right.
So just go to the link that Kay provides. You'll get in there. You'll get on the wait list if you're later than when the challenge is happening. This latest one, and there's also actually an option in there for like very little, like $27 if you don't want to wait a month for the next challenge to start, to actually get started. And what happens by the end of that 5 days, Kay, is we've identified the name of your meetup group, your first one. We've identified the name of your first talk, and I've been giving you feedback about that. And then by the end of the week, you've got people actually signed up to go to your talk in 5 days.
Wow.
Yeah, and let me just say that over. So your meetup doesn't happen during the 5 days.
Right.
It's like 2 weeks down the road, but by the end of the 5 days of the Get Clients Through Meetup Challenge, you've got people by day 4 and 5 are already signed up to do your talk in 2 weeks.
Right. And that's how you start the journey, right?
Yeah, it's pretty fun. Really, really fun. Really fun.
Okay, so speaking of fun, we're going to have a quiz, a branding quiz. Are you ready for that?
A pop quiz, apparently.
Apparently.
So funny.
You did not know. You did not know. And you cannot flunk this test, okay? This quiz. But it's about branding. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to ask you about 2 brands, and you tell me which one you like and why.
Okay.
All right. So Coke versus Pepsi.
Oh my gosh, I don't even drink soda. I mean, I think Coke is probably what I've used and what I would prefer. I mean, I just remember those really fun commercials they used to do, right? Like standing on the mountaintop and all that. And what was it? I forget the name of that
I'd
song.
like to teach the world to sing.
Yeah, it was about peace, right? Like, isn't that what we want?
Mm-hmm. Right. Okay, BMW or Mercedes?
Oh, gosh. Mercedes or BMW? BMW probably, because BMWs are fun, right? Like Mercedes is kind of your, kind of grown up, although I'm sure they have sports versions, right? Little sports car versions. Right. But BMWs I think about as being really fun, right? Just really fun and kind of sporty. And I don't know, I see BMWs go by all the time in my neighborhood, and, it looks like the driver's having lots of fun.
Okay. iPhone or Android?
iPhone or Android? Let's see. iPhone is what I use, and I feel like Apple, I feel like they create great again, I mean, actually, Kay, these all come down to fun. It all comes down to fun, right? Like Steve Jobs and Apple, the iPhone, I mean, his whole passion, his whole purpose, right, was creating, these very easy to use things, right? And so that would be mine as iPhone.
Okay, good. So I have one final question, and this is not an either or, but there was a recent study released about brands in America. And what would you guess is the number one most loved and used brand in America?
It's probably something I'm not thinking of, right? It's probably really surprising. I mean, I think about Amazon.
You got it.
Yeah.
Bravo. I think you were the only person that I've interviewed that I didn't have to give a whole bunch of clues to.
Clues? Yeah, I don't know. I mean, that's very funny. That's very funny. And that was one of my examples, right? Like Amazon, and it's really clear. In fact, my dog was just barking before we hopped on because FedEx was here delivering an Amazon package.
Every day.
I have a neighbor who actually gets an Amazon delivery every day. And I say to his grandmother, so do you think Johnny is maybe addicted to shopping? It's like Johnny gets something new every single day. Like he gets to know the UPS man really well.
Yeah. Okay, so Cornelia, I want to thank you for sharing your story of brand success. I think my friends here in the audience, if you have not considered Meetup as a strategy, you really need to listen to what Cornelia is saying, because it is such a great combination of online, offline, in-person, and having Meetup as really a powerful engine behind you, as you mentioned originally. So you will see in the video here, you will see a link for the challenge that Cornelia was talking about. And I hope that you go, that you explore it, that you either get the program now or participate in the live challenge, and that you are becoming a Meetup expert, just like Cornelia is. So thank you very much, and hope to see you soon. And that's a wrap.
You just heard another great formula for brand success. What's your secret sauce or magic formula? Post your story on our Facebook page called Brand Buzz. Then come back soon for the next brand success story that's cooking up right now.